All right, welcome everybody to a very important live stream where we're going to be discussing the future of this potential deal in Iran. Over the last 48 hours, we have seen a lot of movement. And basically, what we need to go is in today's live stream is we need to cover exactly what's going on in this potential deal between the United States and Iran. And we have to talk about the X factor, which of course is going to be Israel. Interesting enough, Israel has not signed on to this deal. They have said that they actually have nothing to do with it. They said we're completely independent of this deal, which is ironic because it, of course, was Israel that pressured Donald Trump to launch this war against Iran. All of us in the United States know we have some amazing video clips that we're going to show you in today's live stream. We have some amazing polls that have come out that is really showing the world how the view towards Israel is changing. Basically, the view in America is changing. And what we know right now is that Iran and the United States has basically signed a memorandum that they are going to get a deal done within the next 60 days. That's the facts. However, we know that these next 60 days are going to be constantly going up and down. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. We've already seen some major, escalations already in trying to get this deal across the table. And to help me break it down is going to be Alex from Reporterfy Media, my co-host here. Alex, how are you tonight, my friend?
Great, Cyrus. Anytime they mention an MOU, if it's in a boardroom, if it's in a New York napkin over a couple of cocktails, it usually means you don't have a deal. And it usually means you are miles apart. And this MOU that is announced, it's a Band-Aid to a situation that's going to become very serious here. I don't see this de-escalating at all. I think the absolute reversal is what's going to happen here. We're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of this deal. Americans are going to pull back out. The bombing will continue to start. And this time, Iran will bring out the big guns this time. And if we haven't seen enough pressure on the administration, they got 60 days to wrap this up. And by telling them if they don't sit down at the table with JD, they may never go back to their country is not a good start.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring up that first slide because this is exactly what Donald Trump said here, Alex. This is quite the quote from the president. We know that Donald Trump certainly likes to say some very candid remarks, completely off the script. And I just want people to see the actual quote here. This is quite remarkable. This deal with Iran will go down as one of the most incompetent ever made. Not this quote. This is the wrong one, actually. Sorry. This is. What was it? Should be.
Do we want the one with Trump is saying? We'll get it.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
We got so much tonight, guys, to share here.
Yeah. Sorry.
And, we're good.
Oh, we can talk about that one. You can close it and you won't have a country. You won't. Yeah, there you go. So that's the quote that we need right there. Sorry, that was my fault. Operator error there. But you can close it straight to Hormuz, but you won't have a country. You won't even make it back to your effing country. Not the most ideal start to negotiations there, Alex. When you saw a little bit of frustration from Trump. But the thing that all of us around the world know right now is that whatever Donald Trump says, no one actually believes it at this point, right? The amount of times that he's announced a deal with Iran, it took over 110 days. It was probably about 40 announcements for a potential deal. And as you just said, this is basically a memorandum. So, right, this is basically it's an agreement. It's an agreement that we're going to sign a deal within the next 60 days. But there are so many conditions here, guys. And the number one condition is obviously going to be Israel. Israel has to stop their attacks into Lebanon. It's incredible because Israel now occupies 20% of the Lebanon territory. And they have gone, Israel has done what Israel always does is they go to the extreme. Similar to how we saw in Gaza, where they just bombed the living daylights out of it and said, hey, we're going after terrorists. But no, we just leveled off the entire piece of land. They have gone well beyond anything that Hezbollah has done in Lebanon. And they are attacking civilians, killing civilians. And actually, a huge report came out. I don't know if you saw that, Alex, that IDF suffered some massive losses. They basically Lebanon struck back, destroyed a few tanks. Quite a few Israelis were killed in that report. And what we're seeing with the Israelis that's so interesting is that they always try to cover everything up, right? You're never going to see any photos of that. They're going to suppress the news. They're censoring that because they don't want people to know that they've been hit and that they have casualties. But, this is going to be the X factor in this deal, is really how the Israelis are going to, play out. Are they actually going to agree? We've already saw Netanyahu come out and say, look, we don't give a crap about this deal. It has nothing to do with us. We're going to do what Israel does, right? We're going to do what we want to do. And of course, if we go back, Alex, we know the backstory here is that Netanyahu is facing massive corruption charges. As soon as he loses that election in October, he will go straight to jail. That's the reality of the situation. So for Netanyahu, best case scenario is that the war continues because he could care less about the world economy. He could care less about anything other than saving his own butt. And the reality is that Israel needs a war right now, and they are not happy with the United States talking like this. And again, we're going to show some polls and some numbers, backing that up.
They need a war, and they need warheads too, which they're running out of. And Iran has proven that. What I found interesting before we came on the air tonight is I managed to listen to J.D. Vance hit the stage again there in Europe. And, he's very blasé. He comes on the stage and he says, well, this 60-day MOU is, got to understand, things are going to happen. Somebody's going to fire, and we're the good guys. We'll try not to fire, and somebody will fire on Lebanon, and things are going to happen. But, we're going to work that out. Then he says, I want to celebrate something today. That the Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, the Iranians have welcomed them back in. They were in there before, under the Obama deal before. And this is amazing. Every single milestone that this administration says that they've accomplished, it was already in place before. And now what we're seeing is a lot of backtracking, trying to really, cleanse the news and say, okay, guys, we've got this deal with this MOU. We're gonna walk it back a bit, but just follow us. We're going to have a deal in the end. Don't worry about your $6 gallon of oil. Don't worry about that. That's fine. Don't worry about job losses. Don't worry about logistical chains. Don't worry about $100 barrels of oil. Everything's good. The fountains are working in the United States.
Yeah, that's a funny one. But, we're talking about the fountains because I think it's actually a perfect metaphor for Donald Trump. I want you to bring up that next slide here because this is actually amazing. 92% of Israelis say they believe Iran won the U.S.-Israel war against them. And that is a poll from Hebrew University. So again, this is shared by Ian Bremmer, who runs, G0 Media. He's a great geopolitical insider, shares a lot of interesting stuff. But that's remarkable. You have 92% of Israelis, feel that Iran won the war. And to kind of, you hinted at, I'm going to go there, Alex. You talked about this reflection pool in the United States. And this really perfectly sums up, the Donald Trump presidency. Donald Trump, first of all, he takes the filters out of the reflection pool because Obama installed them. He says, you don't need that. He then painted the pool, this beautiful, what they call American flag blue, and it looked great for about 2 days. But the issue is that he forgot basic biology. He didn't understand science. Of course, that's not his job, but you have to talk to the experts about this. And the reality is that the water is extremely hot with that dark background, with the dark color on the bottom. Immediately, algae starts sprouting everywhere. You've got a large flat body of pool. And then what does Donald Trump do? He doubles down and he says, he needs to fix this. So he gets his staff to dump gallons and gallons, thousands of gallons of hydrogen peroxide in there, which causes all the paint to peel up. And then he makes up a story that it's been vandalized. And he blames the Democrats for that. And now, they've already spent $15 million on this pool. The budget was $1 million. They're already 15 times, over. They now have the National Guard surrounding the pool to block people from taking social media posts. So that's what our tax dollars is now funding. The National Guard is defending the pool to make sure that nobody gets close enough to take a photo of it. And of course, Donald Trump can only blame the Democrats and Joe Biden and Obama and whoever else he wants to blame. That is the Donald Trump presidency summed up in a nutshell. It is complete incompetence and everything is blamed and there's just no accountability. And every single thing that he touches just turns into that murky green garbage. And that's a strong statement, but it is the blunt reality of many situations. You look at the White House, and I mean, we're just a couple weeks away from July 4th, the 250th birthday of the United States of America, and the White House and the lawn and the pool, everything looks like garbage. It looks like a redneck trailer park. And, it is just the perfect reflection of this presidency that we see. And I mean, I have to be honest with you, Alex. I think you said, you had a really good insight there when you said, I think that, worse is yet to come, because, Iran has proven to the world that they ultimately have the leverage in this situation. If that hasn't made clear, I don't know what you've been following in the news. But again, Iran, before February 28th, Iran never imagined closing the Strait of Hormuz. They did it. They showed the world that they have that control. And even Donald Trump said, look, we got to sign this deal or else we're running out of oil. The strategic oil reserves are at an extreme low. So we got a couple weeks left at most if we don't get this deal. That's ultimately why Donald Trump had to make this pivot. It is just an absolute kneeling down to Iran. There's no way to spin this. There's absolutely no way. And the only people that are left are really just the hardcore extreme MAGA people. But I mean, Donald Trump has lost on every single count. It's just remarkable where we are at this stage in the game.
I think it's a boatload of bullshit. You watch the headlines on the weekend, of course, whatever, if it's Fox News, wow, 10 million barrels of oil went through the Strait of Hormuz, 7 million barrels went through. Well, yeah, we're losing 20 million barrels a day that should have gone through. And those are probably the guys that were at the starting line, ready for it to open. And once it opened, okay, we can finally go after 3 months of sitting here waiting. Now that's going out. Now remember, those boats that go out take anywhere from 40 to 70 days to get to that port now. That's about 2 or 3 months from now, guys. And we're forgetting that it's got to roll around and come back the other way too, if they're going to be getting more oil out. And, I've been watching an ETF, BWET. You've seen this thing. It's absolutely skyrocketing in the United States. It's a company that, it's an ETF, exchange traded fund, and it's gone anywhere from, I think, $60 to $200 and some per share. And it's a company that's an ETF that's basically focused on ensuring that these ships get from point A to B and back. We have to remember, it's all down to insurance. It's not just about moving these VLCCs through the Strait of Hormuz. It's insurance. And there's only so many insurance brokers. You should have seen, Cyrus, the price of insurance go through the absolute roof here, and it will continue to go through the roof. These insurance company, they are, covering their ASS for sure. And why? Well, all we have to do is go back and look at XL Valdez when it hit and dumped all of its oil and spewed. It took 10 years and it almost bankrupted 2 or 3 insurance companies. One VLCC, one big container, and you got hundreds of them floating around there in the middle of minefields, in the middle of a war zone, and we think the world is going to go back to normal here in oil? Who are we kidding, man? And it's this window dressing from the administration. I don't believe them anymore. I haven't believed them for a long time, and you shouldn't either.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I want to play a video clip. Let's get this next clip up, guys. This is actually quite remarkable. Watch what happens.
We're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. I'm saying that if other countries have them, it's a little bit unfair for them not to have some. No, we're not talking about any easing of sanctions or giving money. No sanctions, no money, no nothing. It's not our money. It's their money. And we froze it. At a certain point in time, I guess we're going to have to give it back. It truly is regime change. And regime change is an imperative. Now, you talk about regime change. I never cared about regime change.
And so once again, guys, I mean, we can go through and we can find all the clips, and this just shows the incompetence of Trump. But it's just remarkable because, again, nothing that he says actually materializes, right? Everything, right? First of all, day one, the goal is regime change. Trump tweeted out, look, we took out the leader. Now's the time for Iran. Rise up, gain your freedom. We did it for you. Obviously, they just replaced the Ayatollah with his son. That's all they did. They had no regime change at all. You talk about the frozen assets. Under Obama's deal, Iran was going to get access to about $1.7 billion. That was a huge firestorm. Of course, the Republicans slammed him. Now Trump is saying, look, $300 million. At this point, Alex, I would imagine Greenland's probably thinking, hey, can you invade us too? Like, why don't you invade us and then just cut us a check for $300 billion? Like, we'd love to be invaded at this point, right? I mean, that'd be the best case scenario for us. Now it's just like, Iran cannot have any missiles. Well, it's kind of unfair for other people to have missiles and say that you can't either. So we're going to let them have those as well. So again, every single point that he's made, in this Iran war, every point is going to Iran, right? You get to keep your missiles. You're going to get access to that $300 billion that we froze. We're going to unfreeze that. And, basically, we're not doing the regime change as we said we were. So, again, I just fail to understand how any of this can be seen as a win for Donald Trump. And now you've got, you mentioned, this memorandum, and how it's being done. You have J.D. Vance sitting down with the Iranian leaders with a laptop, literally typing the deal out as we speak. I mean, it's something we've never seen before, where they're like sitting down and like literally J.D. Vance is typing on a laptop, writing down what Iran wants to see done here. It is remarkable. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And again, I mean, the next 60 days, guys, I mean, I know we've been on this Iran topic a while now. We've been covering this extensively on our live streams, and it is, obviously the number one geopolitical story in the world. And so hence why we have to cover it. But, the next 60 days are going to be very chaotic. It is going to be, constant back and forth. And, if there is a deal that is reached, I mean, we know it has to be reached. But at this point, you're going to have to see the United States is essentially going to have to give in to whatever Iran wants. There's no other option at this point. They've started a war. They can't win. And I tell you what, things are changing. The shifts are happening, even inside, the United States itself. I'm going to show a really interesting clip here. This is the next one. And take a look at this poll here, Alex. This is quite remarkable.
Oh, yeah. We talked about this earlier.
We talked about this earlier. Look at this. This is a poll from Thomas Massey. Now, this is just on his Twitter. And this just started, so the poll hasn't been concluded here yet.
Wow.
But just take a look at that. What is the most dangerous threat to liberty in America? Again, this is about 36,000 votes at this point. It's probably a little bit more now, but you can see, let's say the early polling, people don't believe it's Russia. Okay. People certainly don't believe it's China. So you've got less than 5% of people is saying it's Russia and China. The biggest dangerous threat to liberty in America, you've got a remarkable almost 90% are saying the United States government, but the biggest one, United States government or Israel. Over 90% of the country believe that. And so you see this change that's happening right now. And there's not a country in the world that's more isolated right now on the international stage than Israel. They have really become a pariah state because even within the United States, most people now are waking up to the facts of, my gosh, what are we doing here? Israel has so much power, so much control, and it is absolutely remarkable. I do have a funny one for you. I'd like to bring some comedy in here. Take a look at what I found. This is kind of an Instagram reel that went viral. It's a guy simply typing on his computer saying, where do I send my tax dollars? Should I just pay taxes this year or should I write a check to Israel directly? 131,000 likes, thousands of shares. This is the sentiment that's going on in the United States because the truth has been exposed. I don't see how Israel can really recover here, from their reputation, Alex, and where they are in the region. And when you have Netanyahu basically saying, we're not happy with the deal. 92% of Israelis believe that Iran won the war. Damn well that Netanyahu is just going to double down at this point. They're not going to stop in Lebanon. They're going to be the biggest hindrance. And the more that Israel keeps pushing this, the deal becomes harder and harder for the United States to actually get through.
Somebody asked me the other day where I'm going to travel next. And I've got a few travel destinations, but Iran would be one of them. for this very reason, I would like to go down and really try to understand that culture and those people, because what they have gone through in the last 90 days, can you imagine any nation, whether it's Greenland, whether it's Canada, we may joke about it, but things can happen. We've seen crazier things happen. It could be Cuba next. We don't know. We've seen leaders of countries being dragged out of their house in their pajamas at midnight in Venezuela. We've seen, and I can't believe that the Iranians are actually sharing the same room with Witkoff and Kushner, the Undertaker. If they haven't learned by now, if you sit down with Jared Kushner, the Undertaker, you're usually dead within 48 hours of that meeting. They have killed so many people in that government. And they sit there and they just kind of say, well, yeah, we're not really dealing with senior officials because we killed them all, laugh, laugh, chuckle, chuckle. It's not funny anymore. And that's why I say they are going there. The Iranians are in Switzerland right now. They're not going to back down. They have red lines. America, put up the cash, put up the security, get out of the Middle East, let things go on. If not, get ready. It is the downfall. It is the downfall. And if we haven't learned our lessons over the years that we should not be involved in these parts of the world, and our taxpayers' money goes into funding these wars. It's incredible. You have dog and pony shows of Lindsey Graham going over. He's been in Kiev. He's sold massive and billions amount of artillery to the Ukrainians. Then, of course, he comes to Taiwan. And he tries the same dog and pony show there as well. It's, Cyrus, there is going to be a D-Day here. It is coming unless the Americans are honest, tough one, unless they are going to seriously sign on the dotted line and say, okay, we're going to back down, peace in the Middle East. If not, it's showtime.
Yeah, and I want to show another clip here, Alex. I want people to understand, this massive shift. And I want you to see the shift
donors,
in Trump.
The special interests, the lobbyists have very strong power over these people. They have a lot of control over our politicians. And I don't say that favorably.
This is our first Jewish president. We thank you for everything.
You're not going to support me, even though you know I'm the best thing that could ever happen to Israel. You're not going to support me because I don't want your money. I love Israel. I'm with you all the way. You will be bigger, better, stronger.
And a lot of bad decisions that are being made for the benefit of lobbyists and special interests. You better get rid of the super PACs because they're causing a big problem.
We have to get the people of our country, of this country, to love Israel more. That are Jewish people, that are great people, they don't love Israel enough.
So my big takeaway from that clip there, everybody, is if you see Donald Trump in 2015, those early clips, I agree with him on the, this is where I thought Donald Trump had an opportunity, because if he actually could have stayed true to those values, it could have changed this entire dynamic. If the 2015 Donald Trump stayed true, it would have changed everything, guys, because he wouldn't have taken the bait from Netanyahu. He wouldn't have taken this donor money from Israel. And the United States government would look a lot different than it is today. But the problem, and that clip really just shows you, is just how big that Israeli lobby, how big they are, how much influence they have, how much money they have, how much control they have. And now, this is now reflected, right? This is why I shared those earlier polls here, Alex, is that, we see, the vast majority of Americans, the truth has been exposed, right? There's no turning back now, right? 2015, Donald Trump was considered an outlier, right? He was, we all knew that AIPAC had, influence in the United States government, but no politician would go on stage and call them out. No politician would say, look, I don't want the lobbyist money, right? 2015, Donald Trump had plenty of money. He didn't need that money, but we've seen, incredible just market manipulation. We've seen, his sons being on the boards of tech companies and, defense companies that are getting crypto companies that are getting, billions of dollars of, government kickbacks, and just the corruption is at a level that we have never seen in the United States. And it's sad because Donald Trump had the opportunity, and I think he really was the only one that could have done it in 2015. Yeah. And that's why There was, I was much more optimistic about Trump in 2016. I was definitely, when he won, I mean, I was living in Hong Kong at the time. I remember kind of going to bed that night when he was running against Hillary. I thought it was a done deal. I didn't think that he was going to win. And I woke up in Hong Kong the next morning and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe he pulled it off. Probably the biggest political upset. Well, now he has campaigned on something, right? He has campaigned on something that he is going to do. U.S. has a chance here. U.S. honestly has a chance. But unfortunately, he has gone to the opposite. He's gone, interesting enough, Alex, I did some really big interviews this week, with some fantastic reporters. And, they had said, they said, look, even George W. Bush, if you go back to the war in the Middle East, right? I mean, he took on Iraq, took on Afghanistan. And at that time, Israel approached him and said, hey, you know what? Hey, Bush, you're doing all this stuff in the Middle East. Probably a great time since you're already here. Why don't you go ahead and take down Iran too? It would be in the best interest of Israel. Even George W. Bush said, no, not going to touch that. I'm not, remember that. Iran was completely untouched during the first, war on terror and the Middle East war back in 2003, 2004. Even George Bush knew there's no chance I'm touching that, right? There's no chance we're going to win that war. We can stir things up in Iraq. We can stir things up in Afghanistan. But that's a different animal there. We are not going to even touch that. And again, Netanyahu has been threatening and wanting this war with Iran for 30 years. We can go back to 1996 when he's addressing Congress and talking, guys, Iran is 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear bomb. This has been the same message for 30 years. He finally found a president that was stupid enough to take the bait. And, we've been calling this for months, Alex. Unfortunately, he started a war that he can't win. And again, everyone is now seeing the reality of that situation. And the simple fact is that there's no turning back now. Iran has the leverage, and they're never going to give up that straight. They know that they have that leverage. And the world economy is hanging.
Why should they? I think it's history has changed. It's changed. The map is being rewritten in that area, and that's the way it's going to be. But we continue to see the window dressing on the financial markets happen. And, I did a bit of digging this week. And again, these American financial markets will always raise the eyebrows of the average person. As the more you dig into how these stock markets are portrayed to the public, last week we had on Let's Talk Geopolitics, we spoke about the Elon Musk deal, SpaceX. We had an in-depth, analysis of that, and we brought in the importance and the timing of the White House, why it was so important to have, the UFC fighting and all the weekend celebration to pump that very stock. But this week, I want to really kind of get to the core of how rotten these financial markets are. I think the average person understands that I'm a derivative trader. If you've been watching Let's Talk Geopolitics since the start, I have traded derivatives for over 20 years. They are a much different component than stocks. They pretty much, in my eyes, can forecast the future. But here's something I want to bring up to you guys. Before we go to the little script that I have prepared for tonight, I want the public and the viewers to understand something. That when there's a government policy or a government initiative, like the military-industrial complex, which we see is alive and well in the Middle East, billions and maybe trillions of dollars of artillery has gone over there. Then we see the amount of money that's gone to the Ukraine, which has taken down the UK government again, the 7th Prime Minister in 10 years. We call it the Alinsky curse. But I bet you that you, the viewers, didn't know that 2 of the largest prison systems in the United States are publicly traded companies. And as of last Friday, their stocks have hit a 52-week high. Here they are, CoreCivic and the Geo Group. And let's have a look at CoreCivic and the Geo Group for a moment, shall we? And see what these characters have been up to. Well, it's quite alarming. If we look at the CoreCivic, we will see that, of course, there's lobbying behind it. Lobbying to convince the correctional facilities or the legal and law lawyers, judges, to have longer sentences for prisoners. Longer sentences means more profits for these companies. These are two publicly traded companies on the New York Stock Exchange, and they are the CoreCivic and the Geo Group. Now, on top of that, campaign and inaugural donations, well, isn't that interesting? 2.8 million to the current administration. And of course, spending at the Trump properties is, of interest to them, of course. But what has really caught my attention is these companies used to pretty much focus on the bad boys and the bad girls of the United States of America that really broke the law. But now, Cyrus, their main customer are ICE immigration detention centers. And not only do they make money off of people that go to jail and prison, but they also make it, have a look at the screen here, house arrest, tracking devices, and so on and so forth. This is absolutely staggering to see. And again, we see it. This is America. This is what America likes to do. It brings in hardship. What's it do? It puts people in jail. That's why it's one of the countries in the world that has one of the largest prison systems and the largest people in jail. Absolutely crazy. That's right. Two companies trading on the New York Stock Exchange that incarcerate people, trading at a 52-week high. Welcome to the United States of America. Back over to you, Cyrus.
Yeah, that's a really important segment, Alex. And I've actually got the perfect video clip that I'm going to show you guys here. Before we play that, let me just give you a little intro because, the biggest thing that you saw that, Alex, like you said, is the United States is business. The government, everything is involved to maximize profit as much as you can. But the difference here, and I'm going to play, before I play this clip, is I want you to really listen up here. This is one of the most important clips we're going to play tonight. But just listen to the difference here. This is so interesting in how Trump is running his White House. Take a listen, guys.
Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in American history. It is not close. For nearly 50 years, every president separated their personal finances from the office. Jimmy Carter put his family peanut business in a trust so no one could claim he profited from his decisions. Ronald Reagan liquidated his investments in 1981 and handed them to an independent trustee with no contact and no control. George H.W. Bush did it. Bill Clinton did it. George W. Bush did it. Barack Obama kept his money in treasury bonds and owned no stock as president. Joe Biden held no individual stocks either. None were required to by law. They did it because they understood public office as a public trust, not a personal trading desk. Trump is shredding that tradition. No divestment or blind trust. His sons run a global business empire that cuts deals with foreign governments. His son-in-law manages billions for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE while serving as Trump's volunteer envoy on the war in Iran. He launched a personal cryptocurrency that foreign buyers use to funnel money straight to his family. And now we learn his account made 3,700 trades in a single quarter, more than 40 a day, in companies like NVIDIA, Oracle, Microsoft, and Boeing. Every one with billions riding on decisions his administration makes. We must put a stop to this. Ban stock trading for the president, vice president, cabinet, and every member of Congress. No loopholes.
Can I add to that, Cyrus?
Please.
Abolish the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. They only have civil power. Give them criminal power to charge these guys and put them in jail. I've had enough of this. I was a defender of the administration in 2018. Make America great again. As a Canadian, I thought, wow, okay, United States is back. They're going to bring back America. We got a guy who's not a politician in the White House. He's a businessman. He's going to, bridge ties, like I always say with you, Cyrus. You're the ambassador of hope and the ambassador of, peace. And that's what I thought that Trump was going to do. And then all of this stuff happens. Crazy stuff happens. And it continues to happen. Look at the amount of trades this administration has done. Look at the amount of siphoning of billions of people's dollars. Look at all the oil trades that went through in the derivatives market for hundreds of millions of dollars, and everyone is going to get away with it. I just cannot, I don't know where the breaking point is going to be on this. Is it going to be the next administration that holds these guys accountable, or is the whole system so corrupt that everybody's going to get screwed here and it's going to be anarchy in the United States? Eventually, the people may take over the government. I don't know. But if I was the average American right now, I'd be really pissed off.
Well, I think you are seeing that, Alex. I mean, the average American is very pissed off right now. And the simple thing is that the average American feels that the way that the current government is set up is that it rewards the billionaires and the very few, elite members of our society. Meanwhile, the middle class and lower class are getting absolutely screwed. And there's an interesting point you brought up, in regards to the stock trading and things like that. Alex, any idea what the Prime Minister of Singapore earns in an annual salary? Have a guess what the annual salary of the Singapore Prime Minister is.
$250K? And that's, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a big guess.
2.2 million. And the reason behind that is that they pay them a very high salary because they don't want to have this kind of insider trading. Because, you're the prime minister, you're going to earn a salary of $2.2 million a year. It's a very, high salary. And the reality is, you look at the companies, if you're the Starbucks CEO, if you're Disney CEO, if you're a high level CEO, you're going to be earning millions of dollars. But they do that because they don't want their politicians to be making a salary of, say, $200,000 and being like, you know what, that's not enough. Let's do some insider trading. Interesting enough, we talk about China. China bans its senior officials, from once they are finished serving the Chinese government, they're not allowed to enter into the public space. Okay, this is why for example, you don't see high-level Chinese party members, retiring from the Chinese government and then going into the private sector, getting a consulting job, sitting on the board, because the reality is that with their connections, they can move industries. So they banned that, right? They said, look, there's too much conflict of interest here. So there's a nice checks and balance systems, Alex, that works in some of these other Asian countries. And, again, Singapore, in my opinion, one of the best countries in the world, fantastic government. And I think that I like that model. I don't mind the Singapore prime minister earning $2.2 million. I mean, you're freaking prime minister. It's a tough job to do. But, you have someone like Nancy Pelosi, who is the greatest stock trader of all time. Why? Because of insider trading. But she's earning a salary of, I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 a year, but yet she's going to retire, with a net worth of probably $50-60 million. You can't do that, right? You can't earn a salary of $200,000 a year, serving the people, and then retire with a net worth of over $60 million. It doesn't happen unless you are doing, insider trading and a bunch of naughty stuff that you should not be doing because you're supposed to be serving the people. I honestly think these Asian countries have a much better system. And yes, that includes China. China has a much better system in that. That's why, and that has been the key thing from the Chinese government, obviously, is to, stop corruption. This has been a huge campaign for the last 10 years, weeding out corruption in the government. Obviously, it still happens, but it's getting less and less because it's been a huge goal of the government saying, look, we need to change these things. And, that's the biggest thing that people really need to understand, Alex. I mean, I've been on the ground here in China the last month, traveling around. I mean, you and I, we've traveled China. We've been top to bottom, west to east. I mean, we've been all over this country. And when you start traveling in China, you start going to the more rural towns, you start going to the third, fourth, fifth tier cities, you start to see what a competent government is actually doing for its people. Sorry for the little PR pitch about China, but, it's a country that we cover extensively in our Let's Talk Geopolitics show. But I want people to understand that that's what has to happen. That's what has to happen in the United States. There has to be a change. You ask, Alex, a good question. Is it going to happen, in the next election? Probably not. Because, the reality is, when you have hospitals, turned into a, money-making machine, you have the pharmaceutical industry is turned into a money-making machine. Like you just pointed out, I mean, for gosh sakes, the two largest prisons are publicly traded companies at the 52-week high. We're not interested in having a a correct judicial system. We're interested in making money off of it. And that's what the United States government has. And it's just getting extrapolated over time, just getting worse and worse and worse. And who is the biggest loser in this? It's the middle class. It's the average American that's just getting more and more screwed every single year.
There is hope. There is hope. If you are suffering with health, get on an airplane, come to China, get medical care. Now, people might say, what are you talking about? That's not possible. The hospitals in China, they must be diabolical. They must be terrible. No, they're not. I walked in a $750 million hospital that was open a year here in Chongqing. Absolutely amazing. I'll give you an example. I had a CT scan, $53. Had an appointment with a doctor, $1.70. And I had medication, which was $9. All that, all wrapped up for 2 hours in and out of the hospital without an appointment and without insurance. Word is going to get out, Cyrus. This country here, it's not perfect. The government's not perfect. But I'm going to tell you, if you are a person that wants safety, want to travel to a nice country, maybe for a healthcation, this is the country to do it. The Thais, I used to live in Thailand for about 8 years. Their hospital systems there, they've got it down. They know exactly what to do there, and they know how to bill now too, and they know how to bill insurance companies as well. But right now, if you're a person that thinks that there's no hope in these countries, if you're one of the 50 to 55 million Americans that don't have medical coverage, get on an airplane and get over to China and get the treatment instead of waiting 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, or even before you die. And I say that with confidence. I also say that safety and security with confidence. The infrastructure with confidence. I just flew back from a city of Nanjing. I was there over the weekend. The infrastructure in that city, probably most viewers have never heard of that city. But once again, never had an issue walking out on a Friday night concerned about, is my phone going to be in the front pocket? Trust me, nobody carries wallets here anymore in China because it's a complete digital currency. But Cyrus, it must be quite the contrast that you're coming from the United States of America. And don't get us wrong, we love our countries, but we have to call a spade a spade. From where I'm from in Canada, Vancouver, not a safe area to go out on a Friday night, walking with your wife in downtown Vancouver. Got to be very cautious about that. And Cyrus, so it's got to be quite the contrast. You coming over here with your family, your children and stuff like that. Sometimes, when you're traveling to certain countries, you got to take safety and security, of course, always into consideration. But here in China, you must have a little bit level of comfort.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the best things that, that we really enjoy. I mean, I posted on Twitter today, a photo of somebody leaving their laptop at a cafe, and simply went up. I mean, we're talking a busy shopping mall in China. We got a cafe that's right, kind of in the open area there. And somebody went up and, a shopping mall, right? They had to walk quite a bit to go to the bathroom, left it there for 10 minutes. No, nobody's going to steal that laptop. And I talked about that, what is true freedom, and I believe the biggest freedom is a safety in a society. I think it's a huge freedom. And, Alex, I want to get back to our Iran deal.
Sure.
This is I just saw a tweet here. This is just breaking news. It was tweeted about 5 minutes ago. The Kabaisi letter, fantastic follow on Twitter. Breaking: the United States has issued Iran a general oil-related license allowing the production, delivery, and sale of Iranian origin oil, petrochemical, and petroleum products through August 21st. Iranian oil is officially returning to global markets for the first time since 2018. Alex, another, massive win for Iran. I mean, it's just Iran is just stacking the W's, right? They just keep on getting more and more wins as these negotiations go on. I don't even know if they've really made a concession yet to the United States, other than, okay, we're going to open the strait. And that's the amazing thing, right? You hear the Trump administration, talking about, Iran is conceding, right? They're going to, guys, the whole goal of this war is to reopen the strait. That's what we have to do. Guys, we are fighting for you to reopen the strait. sorry, the strait that was opened for decades before you started your war on February 28th. I got another clip here, Alex. Let me play this clip. I'll get your reactions. Let's roll this next clip. This one's a banger. Get ready for
Donald
this one, guys.
Trump wins again. War is over. We got everything we wanted. Sure. What's in the agreement? No idea. It hasn't been released yet. But he says the strait is finally open, the one that we've had complete control over. Yeah, okay. And Trump said he would only accept unconditional surrender. Uh-huh. So we got the enriched uranium. Not yet. An end to their proxy wars? No. A pro-American Iranian regime? Well, they're going to be happy that we're unfreezing their assets. Sure. So Obama giving them their money was pallets of cash on a plane, and Trump giving them their money is an olive branch on the condition that they hit certain benchmarks. Wow, that almost sounds like a deal. Like an Iran nuclear deal. Exactly. Finally. Yeah. But anyway, all of that was a distraction. Right. From the Epstein files. No. From the midterms? No. From rising inflation, gas prices, and the cost of living? No. From the infrastructure work he did in D.C. Oh, well, I did see some construction going on at the Kennedy Center. No. The reflecting pool. We finally have a president who is cleaning up this country, and you were just jealous. Well, I am looking at the pictures now, and I am green with envy. Thank you. Wait.
So true.
The jokes write themselves, Alex. At this point, it's hilarious. But I mean, it's guys. I mean, buckle up. I mean, it's going to be a kind of a crazy, few weeks ahead. I mean, again, we're going to have to wait and see what's going on. But, I like to share that breaking news thing because, golly, it's just incredible how much Iran is gaining. I mean, and also shout out to the Iranian football team for their amazing draw today. They had a nice, draw there, and they're actually looking, to advance. I believe if they win, there's a potential they could meet the United States in the round of 16, Alex, in the World Cup. Which, can you imagine that? Imagine the United States playing Iran. That would be pretty amazing. And a nice gesture from the Iranian team. They played both of their games in LA at SoFi Stadium, for the World Cup. And they left a really nice note, in the locker room, just saying, thanking the city of LA. For those of you that don't know, LA is the largest city in America with Iranian population, a tremendous amount of Iranian immigrants and ethnicity there. And so it was awesome for it's actually quite amazing to have the Iranian flag all over the stadium in the United States, and many people supporting that football team. And they just said, look, we've come here, we've had some difficulties, even with the border and visas and all of this stuff. But, the Iranian team has played very well in the World Cup, and, definitely wish them. It's awesome. That's I'm a big sports guy. So, I mean, it's nice to see sometimes, sports being able to transcend, some of this crazy political stuff. Like you said, I mean, you're very interested to go to Iran. I would love to go there as well one day. Whenever I meet an Iranian person, they love my name, obviously. Cyrus is actually one of the most common Persian names, named after King Cyrus, the great king of Persia back in the day in the Bible. But it's a country that's always fascinated me. And you know what? At this point, Alex, I do want to kind of bring some hope here. I mean, with this kind of, new deals that are coming through and, potentially the new leverage that Iran has, I hope that the United States does actually seek to, restore some type of diplomatic relationship with Iran, have an embassy there, normalize relations. Again, this has been the biggest problem for Iran for 47 years. The simple fact that they've been sanctioned and cut off from the world. We've already seen that start to change, right? Iranian oil officially returning back to the global markets for the first time since 2018. Remarkable.
Yeah, well, hold your cheering on that, because I'm going to read this in a little bit more for the viewers. So the U.S. on Monday temporarily authorized Iranian oil sales after peace talks with Tehran and Washington and Switzerland over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said. As part of the framework, Treasury has issued a temporary 60-day general license authorizing the production, delivery, and the sale of Iranian oil, Bessent said in a social media post. Now, most people would say, okay, turn the taps on, make money. One problem, the Iranian central bank is not even connected to the SWIFT banking system. And what currency can be traded for that wonderful oil? Can be the Chinese RMB or the US dollar. I'd be quite surprised if they're allowed to trade that on the markets in US dollars when they've been cut off through sanctions and their central bank of the US dollar for decades. So I am optimistic, and I echo what you say. I hope that diplomatic relationships will improve. But imagine if the White House administration top negotiators were wiped out, then second in command was wiped out, the father of the leader of the country was wiped out in the United States of America. Would the US be so open arms to agreeing with such people doing deals? I don't think it's going to happen. I still don't think a deal is going to happen. This is clearly window dressing for the oil market. This is to keep the oil down at around the $78 to $82 a barrel. That's all this is. Wishful thinking, not going to happen. Thank you very much, Besant, but that's very vague. And again, that is targeted for the derivatives and options and futures market of the oil. That is all it is, nothing else. I mean, the average person would say, okay, well, the Iranians can get oil into the market. Well, how are we going to do that? Is the Strait of Hormuz open? Okay, it's kind of open. Tankers go the speed of bicycles to get to refineries. Window dressing, Cyrus. Let's not be fooled.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always the optimist, right, Alex?
I know you are,
I'm always trying to seek that. I'm always trying to seek that peace deal. I'm always trying to bring, countries together and find a way. I mean, that's how I started the YouTube channel, right? Trying to be an olive branch and trying to be, the unofficial official ambassador for the U.S.-China relationship. I mean, it is remarkable. But let's play that. I got one last, little image here I want to share here, just to kind of put a little, let's go ahead and share this up. But here's our boy, Pete Hegseth, renames it to the Department of War, names himself the Secretary of War, fights one war, and he loses. I think there's going to be a little bit of humble pie here for the United States, because I don't see how they're going to be able to recover from this. I mean, this is a humiliating loss. They're going to have to figure out a way, to somehow incorporate Iran more into this global economy, because they've gotten a gift. Ironically, Alex, we're both in China right now, and Trump is known as the nation builder here in China, 建国. You got to build a nation, as we say in Chinese, and that's Donald Trump's nickname, because many Chinese netizens feel that actually Donald Trump and his policies have benefited China a lot. We've seen the trade war, spectacularly, flop and absolutely be a disaster for Donald Trump. We've now seen the Iran war, a second war that, he's gotten his absolute butt kicked on. And so there's going to have to be some changes here for the United States. They're going to have to change their ways here. And again, I mean, we opened that earlier, as far as the reflecting pool. Yeah, it's kind of a very good symbolism of what's really going on in the United States. And I hope it changes. I hope it does change.
It's interesting. Last week, I was hosting a roundtable, and I'm just going to bring this up here, guys. I was hosting a roundtable with people from Singapore, China, Hungary, really getting a lot of insight. This was the International Symposium on the Global Significance of China Modernization. And here's what I covered, and I just want to chat with you about this, Cyrus. From the 16th to the 18th here in Chongqing, we hosted an intellectual international symposium on global significance of China modernization. You and I have talked about China's modernization a lot here. It was themed Advancing Modernization Together, Building a New Future. The events focused on mutual learning and development of Global South and Chongqing practice of Chinese modernization. I mean, these were, think tanks, scholars from China. We gathered in our city here. We took them around for a visit. They started to really, have a good look at this city. We talked about it in a roundtable. And we talked about new energy vehicles. We talked about the Belt and Road. And we talked about this importance of this city. You've seen China. Every time you come to China, Cyrus, something either new has happened or another advancement has happened. I have absolutely seen the 6 years I've been here in Chongqing, just lightning speed, that it can be done with the right policies, the right strategy, and the care for its people. amazing things can happen here. I just wanted your insights on China in general and the modernization that we're in here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fun thing about China is we always talk about China speed, and China speed is different than anywhere in the world because, the government can move very quickly. They can, when a project is deemed to be important, national significance, needed for the people, they don't have that, that bureaucratic red tape that we often do in Western countries that, just is going to take months not months, years and years of planning and, to try to get through. A couple of weeks ago, Alex, I was in
that bridge.
I went to go see the bridge, the Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge. Remarkable project, $350 million to build, on time, under budget, 3 years. Built over the most impressive gorge, that's just beautiful. I mean, it's one of the most amazing areas. And the incredible thing here is we're walking through the bridge, and I'm with a tour guide who's just kind of showing me and telling me about this. And they point out to the valley down below. It's about 650 meters down below. And they point out and they said, you see that old wooden bridge in the corner? And I mean, we're talking like a small little wooden bridge. I mean, I could barely see it. So I'm like zooming in on the camera. I'm like, where the heck is this bridge? And they're like, yeah, that's the old bridge. And I'm like, that's the old bridge? And I'm like, this is remarkable. Like, and they're like, yeah, that actually dates back to like the Qing dynasty. And that used to be an ancient tea route, to get tea, through the Guangxi province. And I was like, that's incredible. Like, I can't believe that's the old bridge. And the thing is, I mean, unless you really come to China and you go to the rural areas there, Alex, one of the biggest takeaways that I saw is as I was driving in the long bus ride, it's hard to get to. It's in the middle of nowhere. And the thing is that it connects kind of the western half to the eastern half of the province. But as we're driving there, about a 2-hour drive in the car, there's these beautiful schools, right? Just beautiful schools that have been built. And I'm talking amazing football fields, basketball courts, and there's thousands of kids there. I mean, it's a state-of-the-art facility, in the middle of, I have no idea where we're at. And I'm like, wow, that is, you can imagine the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of lives that have been, helped by that. And here's a look at that bridge, guys, on the right here. This is beautiful drive right there. So the Huajiang Grand Canyon Bridge, tallest bridge in the world, about 2,000 feet or 650 meters above the riverbed down below. And again, it connects the eastern and western part of the province there. And so it used to take a 2-hour drive. If you look on the bottom left corner, you can see that zigzaggedy road. Right. That was the old road. They had to take that road all the way down, and that little wooden bridge would be way off in the corner. And Alex, I mean, and people want to say this.
They've got clever with this bridge too, right, Cyrus? They've put a restaurant on it, a viewing platform on it. I guess fun things like, I don't know if they've done bungee jumping in there. I haven't been there. They do. But I saw you do something pretty deadly. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I strapped in with some straps, and you can actually walk across. There's like an open section with like a wooden bridge that you can, kind of walk across. And so I strapped in, and that's, so if you haven't seen my video about it, take a look at that, because it's the best intro of a YouTube video I've ever done, where, the first 30 seconds of the video, I'm walking over the bridge, getting my microphone out. I mean, it was tough to record, but sometimes people, Alex, I'm gonna like respond to the haters here, because they're gonna be like, oh, that's just propaganda. That's just, you're just spouting about China. But it's like, dude, come to this part of the world and speak to the locals. Like what I was amazed, Alex, was the pride in the staff. When I got there, they were just like, hey, welcome to the bridge. This has been amazing. I met one of the guys that was at the bridge. He actually was working in the Zhejiang province. And when he heard that they were building this bridge, that was in his hometown. So he's come from like this rural village. And he said, if you're building that bridge there, I'm going to go back to my hometown and I'm going to open up some Airbnbs. And so now he has homestays, because he just knew it would be this huge tourist destination. And so, I spoke to him for 20 minutes about the bridge and how it's changed his life. And, this is the real stuff that I'm really trying to uncover. I just want people to understand this is what's happening. And so, you go to these rural areas and you ask people like, what do you think of the government? What do you think of Xi Jinping? They're going to be like, yeah, we're so happy. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. And so again, real tangible benefits. I challenge you to go to a small town America and try to find people that are like, yeah, the Trump administration's doing stuff for us. Like, we're benefiting tremendously. No, I mean, it goes kind of full circle here, right? They see the impact that Israel's having. They see the wars that we're fighting. They see the Epstein files. They see the White House being destroyed. And it's like, at the end of the day, my cost of living, my gas, everything up is skyrocketing, absolutely skyrocketing. And it's just shocking.
It's interesting. They do have bridge parties in China. They do. Before they open up the road, they invite thousands of locals. I've been to them in Chongqing. Chongqing municipality has over 20,000 bridges in it. And I've been to bridge parties. Yep. Vendors are on there. You can fly the drone around there before the bridge opens. I mean, amazing story. I just want to say again to everybody that's come out here, we usually try to do a Sunday night. Remember, both of us are traveling at the moment. Cyrus and I have been traveling around China. You can announce when we're going to meet up, sir. You can do that. And I just want to thank everybody from the iChongqing, the Reporterfy Media, and the Cyrus Janssen channel. Don't forget to subscribe to all these channels. Let's Talk Geopolitics has stayed consistent here for the last 14 or 15 weeks. Again, we really appreciate you guys coming out. And you can see we do our homework before we do these shows. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share this throughout all social media. I'm going to hand over the show to wrap up with Cyrus Janssen. Cyrus, always a pleasure to share screens with you. And next week, we got a big show coming.
Yeah, we do. I'm excited. And what's also exciting here, Alex, is that exactly a week from today, June 29th, I will be actually flying to Chongqing, and I'm going to be meeting up with you. So you talked about that. I was in Chongqing in summer 24, and so I'm excited to get back because I know there's going to be so many more improvements, so many more things being built. If you leave China for a few weeks, you almost feel like things are changing and moving. Imagine leaving for 2 years. So I'm excited to get back there. Definitely going to be recording a lot of videos for you guys. So stay tuned to that. So we're going to have some travel vlogs, not really travel vlogs, but more of our walk and talks, more of the geopolitical insights into what's happening in China, and expect to see some nice updates from Chongqing. Of course, before I go there, we're going to be doing our next show, which will resume back next Sunday. I did have some messages asking people if we're getting back on the Sunday stream. So Sundays is our default time. We always try to do a Sunday night show, but Alex and I are constantly traveling as well. So if we're not doing it on a Sunday, it's because we're traveling. So appreciate you guys showing up on a Monday. I know it's kind of an off-peak time, but you know what? We've had a great stream. Alex, always a pleasure to share the screen. Let's roll our outro, and we'll see everybody in our next episode of Let's Talk Geopolitics very soon. Thank you all.